Thank you for having me over here. It was a long day, so I know you're tired. I could do a presentation about our product, but I said I'm going to read you something that I think is going to be more useful for you, and I want that you take something with you home and think about it. In the first part, I'm going to say to you, learn you something about, or tell you something new things, and then I'm going to explain you where I see the real problem of this whole world and how we can change that, and then I will tell you what Naka is. So the whole thing is, I think I changed a lot in the last 2-3 years. Slowly but surely, I'm starting to understand what is the real philosophy behind Satoshi Nakamoto. I think it's give everything you can and don't expect anything in return. And contribute every day the most you can to make this world a better place. Motivate people around you, but basically don't waste your time if they don't understand it or if they doesn't want to follow. But just try to do your best. I think Satoshi wanted to learn us that and give us that message through his work he did. Our brain processes visual information at a speed between 13 and 15 frames per second. But the speed of our thoughts, it's almost at the speed of light. In the last 10 years, the inflow of the information from individuals, for the individuals between 16 and 30 years old, increased for around 300%. As a result, cognitive brain overload has become an undeniable issue for many. Information overflow is significant distraction, making it difficult for many to think clearly and stay focused. Constantly, we're often forgetting to ask ourselves the most important questions when we are overloaded with information, like, do my decisions positively impact the broader audience? Do I contribute positively to society, nature, and the world in general? I don't need to explain you that we live in a very fragmented and greed-driven world. I read somewhere that 81% of people between 60 and 30 years old believe that this world will never be a better place. Maybe another interesting fact. According to studies, our brain works exactly the same when we are in need or greed of money. And when we have a sufficient deficiency of money resources, we see money as a drug. It's the same approach how our brain reacts when we are in need of money, like to heroin or cocaine. So if you let the money control you, you're a junkie. There are people in the world who work from morning till evening, working in physically or mentally extremely stressful jobs. Their daily routine is so deeply rooted that they don't even know anything else. They work hard, but they will never be wealthy. They work, but they don't really earn. They send money abroad because they at least have a job. Interestingly, a person that doesn't have much will try to give you everything. Living in high inflation markets with high remittance, or unbanked markets, is like having a huge agricultural fields that you work on it every day, but it never blossoms. Being unbanked doesn't just mean not having a payment card. It means not having an option to ever get a fair salary or having a credit score. It means you will never obtain a loan. Having your own apartment is just a dream, but worst of all, you can never get old. There is no pension for people that didn't receive their money via bank account and pay taxes. Once you are old and living as an unbanked, you need to ensure that you don't get sick. Because if you get sick, you can't work. If you don't work, you can't buy food, you can't pay rent, or buy medicine. That's why you have children to help you, right? But what if they're also part of the unbanked? What if they also have their own families? The pressure grows, the spiritual depends, and today in 21st century, you still have a bit less than 2 billion people living in this kind of a world. So we as a company, we've been building the state-of-the-art payment acceptance rails and protocols that allow merchants to accept payments of all kinds of ways. On the payment devices, the physical POSs, or in e-commerce. We created business models where payments can be free, set up regulatory frameworks, and as pioneers, we created standards for how payments should be managed. We basically created a payment infrastructure that can change the world, and it can be fully decentralized. But that was not enough. When we saw the situation in Argentina, Peru, Chile, later on in El Salvador, Mexico, we decided to combine all our brands under one brand called Naka. All our products need to strive to be decentralized, but at the same time regulatory compliant, because you simply can't take a shit in the SEC office and expect that no one will notice. Our latest creation that we officially are launching here in Lugano with amazing partners like Bitfinex Pay and the city of Lugano, and all the amazing people that are right over here, it's the Naka card with its own payment scheme. Firstly, Naka is a totally different thing. It's totally different in a way that it's not hooked to core banking services, but it works through smart contracts. It's probably the first decentralized card in the world that is EVM compliant. This means it can be widely accepted because it meets all the security standards and protocols of Europay, Visa, and MasterCard. In other words, this means that Naka doesn't need any special POS terminals or new terminals to be accepted, but it can be part of already existing payment acceptance schemes, so it can be widely scaled. That was one of the most difficult things to set it up, because every new payment scheme had to issue its own POS on top. Secondly, Naka is hooked to your non-custodial wallet, and no one can touch or is touching your money. It's activated in a minute, and it's really simple to use. You activate your card so that you scan it with your non-custodial wallet. In the first version, we use MetaMask. Once you scanned it and you created your wallet, you link your account to your card. You set up the PIN for high-volume purchases, and you can see your balance and access it at any time. Now your Naka is ready to go, and the best thing is you already know how to pay with it. Thirdly, all our payments are instant, much cheaper, and made for people who live in unbanked, high remittance, or high inflation markets. Naka, for example, in El Salvador, also means extra insurance on the card if you get it, or a simple remittance tool. It can be what people need most it to be. Once Naka reaches maturity, we'll be able to support micro and macro loans that will be probably the game changer in the whole banking industry. Who would ever have thought that you can decentralize banking? Because these two words are contradictory. Yes, they are, but once it happens, you will have so many tools that drives people and change their quality of life that I believe the adoption will happen much faster. Thank you all, and never forget to ask yourself whether the decisions and actions you make have the positive impact on our society and the world we live in, and never expect anything in return. Thank you very much. I can fit in the chair.
Really humbling speech there, Dejan. I'm going to give you a microphone.
Oh, sorry, thanks.
It's on? Is it on?
3, 4, 5.
Fantastic. And we should see our names on our faces here. Fantastic. You're sat in the right chair.
Thanks, man.
Well done. I'm sorry that it's a little bit small. Yes, a round of applause for sitting in the right chair. Next up, I'd like to invite onto the stage Luis Pinedo, of course, the head of product at Bitfinex Pay. Welcome to the stage, Luis. Please take a seat. Please sit next to Dejan. And of course, Paolo Ardoino, the man who needs no introduction by now, the CEO of Bitfinex, Tether, and Hole Punch. Welcome, Paolo. And me, I'm going to moderate this. Welcome, gentlemen. That was a humbling speech there from Dejan. Really important message delivered there. The key thing is, of course, banking the unbanked. But one thing I'm sort of confused about, when I go to pay in Lugano, I pay at a Bitfinex POS. Then I've seen recently the Naka Pay thing pop up there. So I just wanted to understand, what is the sort of relationship between Bitfinex Pay and Naka? Please, could you explain to me what's going on there? Dejan?
Well, Naka really provides the POS devices, and we are partnered with them. So we provide the payment option for crypto payments. And I think you introduced the Naka card as well. So the Naka team also provides an option for to pay with their own, non-custodial card. So yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome. Would you like to add anything to that, Dejan?
Yeah, well, the thing is that when Paolo actually invited us that we can work on this together 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
There was no acceptance of crypto over here in Lugano, and now you have like 360 locations accepting it, and there could be even more. But we just put on top now the card because we wanted to showcase that maybe it's easier for the user. I see a lot of complexity in all these blockchain-based and crypto-focused products, and I just want to make it as simple as possible. So thank you guys for sharing your infrastructure also with us. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay, and does that mean that there might also be sort of an Apple Pay or Google Pay or Tap to Pay integration coming soon?
I think that's the easiest you can get. So our goal is to bring it to that simplicity. And what you see here is the first version. So that the first version, when you just tap the card and you don't have to have anything else over here. Later on, the goal is that all the existing POS terminals start accepting Naka, and we don't need to have any more our own terminals in Lugano. For example, in El Salvador, between 7th and 9th of November, we're actually launching the first open scheme. It means that not our POSs would read the card, but the POSs that are already on the market. And that's the game changer, because it's much cheaper and much more scalable.
Interesting. Those are the same dates as adopting Bitcoin, no?
Yeah, I guess why. Yep.
Just putting two and two together there. Okay, but what does it mean from a merchant standpoint? You know, are you able to breed Bitcoin maximalist hodlers with laser eyes? Are they genuinely accepting Bitcoin and hodling that Bitcoin? Or are they cashing out immediately? Are they cashing out a small percentage into franc tokens, as I'm now referring to them?
Well, I think the most important part is that it has to be an option, right? So we are not here to push Bitcoin down the throats of every single merchant. I don't think it's the right way to achieve adoption. I think adoption has to come with education. And so first they have to understand the technology. They have to see that it's not evil, that it's not difficult. I think the most important exercise that we are doing here at Lugano is using Lugano as a template. And being Lugano template, we have to do research, development, get feedback, adjust things, improve them, and then we keep going, right? We could have launched 2,000 merchants in Lugano and going door to door in 1 month and installing point of sales. But that's not the right way to do it, right? You want to install a few of them, get the feedback, trying to adapt the software and the user experience also to the necessities of the territory. So, and also that means that you need to also, Bitcoin is about freedom, right? So it's also freedom of choice is in keeping a part of it, like 1%, 10%, 100% in Bitcoin when you receive a payment. So we wanted to give that freedom to the merchants.
Just to that point about the network effects, when I arrived into Lugano this June, I was trying an experiment of living on Bitcoin in Lugano for 2 weeks without touching fiat rails whatsoever. I arrived on Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. Obviously, all these wonderful Swiss people were enjoying their time off and their day off. So I got here and went to all these places that accept Bitcoin, and they were all closed. So I went to a kebab shop that was open, and by this point it was 32 degrees that day. It was very hot. I've been walking around with my luggage.
And I had a kebab 32 degrees?
You know where it's going. So I walked into the shop and said, "Hey mate, I am trying to do this thing where I live on Bitcoin. And he was like, oh, Bitcoin, I think I've seen that around here. And I was like, great, you're halfway there. And I showed him how to use a wallet. He accepted Bitcoin. I paid for the world's most expensive kebab, 2 liters of water. And I think it was just testament to the fact that once you have that network effect in a city, you have that sort of ricochet of adoption around it becomes so much easier. And it sort of harks back to what credit card sellers used to do in, the 70s and 80s. They'd literally go door to door and then go to those pockets where there was adoption. But Luis, I wanted to get a sense of how it looks from a product standpoint. You're the guy dealing with this on a day-to-day basis at Bitfinex. What can you share with regards to the, what do you call it, the auto-convert feature?
Well, auto-convert feature is something that we introduced pretty early in the product because after talking to merchants, we understood that usually merchants, they make money by selling their products and services, not by trading or holding Bitcoin, and a lot of them are actually scared of it, right? So we wanted to allow them or give them the option to automatically convert, for example, Bitcoin to Tether, so they can avoid the volatility and they can, rest assured that, they're going to manage that in a much better way. So that's something that we integrated last year, and now we are also, we had some more feedback with other merchants, and we're also adding auto-convert to fiat directly. And also something that we are trying to figure out how to do, and we will do probably next year, is to allow the merchants to actually have a slider so they can decide how much they want to auto-convert, right? So imagine that you get the payments in Bitcoin and you don't really feel very comfortable, but you want to try a little bit, right? So you auto-convert only 90% to USDT or to fiat, and you hold that Bitcoin, and as you become more and more comfortable, working with Bitcoin, you can, slide that up. So, yeah.
Fascinating. A sort of way of merchant orange pilling people so they get used to that volatility.
So we're working also on adoption on the merchant side, right? So
yeah, big time. Okay. Before we come back to Switzerland, I wanted to tap into what you were saying there, Dejan, during your presentation. Of course, it's about banking the unbanked. Here we are in Switzerland, which is one of the most banked places on the planet. What's been your experience with regards to emerging markets? Have there been things that surprised you, as Luis mentions, or has it been plain sailing?
I mean, definitely, we have a really small percentage of unbanked over here, right? But you have a lot of people who are sending money outside of Switzerland to their families abroad. What is interesting in Switzerland is there is a culture and people want to work and everybody is really engaged, even if they're not, even if they're all at home at 8 with their families, I think that's actually very healthy. But for example, in El Salvador, it's for us really difficult to get the right people who are so, or the culture is so different that we need to, let's say, go to the same merchant 15 times to actually onboard that merchant. It's always something missing, or how many times it happened in El Salvador? We came to a meeting that it was agreed 15 minutes before we're gonna come. We always call them, we're on our way, yes, come. And we waited for 2 hours and they're like, sorry, a little bit late, but it's a cultural different in every market, and over here, thanks God, everything works pretty cool.
If you're 50 minutes late here, it's game over.
Forget it, this is like, you are late, and it's 30 seconds. So every market has its own specifics, but what I see over here, we need to showcase it in a relevant country, in a relevant framework, in a matter that others would actually say, well, this is legit. And we couldn't find a better place like Switzerland and the better guys from the government who are actually supporting this and giving us this field where we can showcase, test, play, and obviously then copy this into the countries that really need these solutions. Do you agree, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also I think from an adoption standpoint, when you think about how to bring as many users to Bitcoin, at the beginning we thought, okay, so let's just work on getting the infrastructure ready so we get as many merchants as possible so you can actually live off crypto. But we realize now that there's much more than that. It's, we had situations with some merchants here, and here This is a developed country, so merchants are used to use POS devices for credit card payments. But we've seen people that whenever you just mention Bitcoin, they get scared, right? So when you get merchants get employees coming in and out all the time, right? And then they have to train them how to use the devices and all that. And we have situations in which, we have the sticker saying that Bitcoin is accepted here, but then the actual employee is so afraid of just interacting with Bitcoin that they will say, no, we don't accept Bitcoin here, So we've seen a lot of different situations that require a lot of time and education, and basically probably a generational change, so people feel more comfortable basically using and receiving payments with Bitcoin.
No, sure thing. I just want to go a bit deeper into the element of financial inclusion and banking the unbanked. Is the process in Switzerland to unbank the banked? Is that the direction we're going now? Bitcoin be your own bank. Everyone has, at least five bank accounts here. So why do it here first? We know the case of El Salvador. It was 70% unbanked prior to the Bitcoin law coming in. Latin America, it ranges from 30% banked to 70 or 80% bank if you look at the case of Peru. Here we are completely banked. Why bother? They've got a great financial system. Why do we need to implement Bitcoin here? Maybe Paolo, you could take this.
Yeah, I mean...
Credit Suisse?
Well, they unbanked themselves. So, why here? So, first of all, it's here and in El Salvador, so we actually are experiencing different use cases, different environments, so that is really important, right? You don't want to go in one single place and assume that everything is the same everywhere else in the world. So we are actually using Lugano as a template. So we have 300 merchants here. We learn a lot. We learn how also we got the feedback from merchants used to manage a lot of payments through digital infrastructure, because in any way credit cards are digital infrastructure. So if you want to create a product that aims to bring the same user experience to people in El Salvador like everyone else, for example, you have in Switzerland or Europe, you have also to make sure that the people that are used to digital payments already can use those solutions, right? So then you can carry them over to other countries so that the merchants in these countries can actually have the same experience that has been developed over the last 20, 30 years, right? That with the credit cards. So it's a bit of like experiencing different realities at the same time having, take the creme de la creme and use that as a feedback to ensure that your product is up to par with the most sophisticated banking system in the world, that is the Swiss one.
Okay, well, maybe let's put it to the test. I mean, how many people in here have a bank account? Just raise your hand if you have a bank account. Okay, and how many of you here have made a payment via Bitcoin at a merchant in Lugano over the past couple of days? Oh, okay, yeah, so I guess I've just undermined my own point there. Good journalist.
Did you lift the hand?
Sorry?
You lift the hand?
Yeah, I only have Bitcoin. I'm trying to unbank myself. That's the goal here. Okay, let's... I kind of am assuming here, but Lugano does seem to be a success story. It's a small Swiss city that is now drawing international attention, international appeal. Presumably, there are other cities, other countries looking at the Lugano success story and thinking, how can I do that where I am? Is there an element of competition here? There must be, right? And how do you manage this? Or is it this beautiful, Bitcoin collaboration where we're all helping each other out and we're helping lift each other up? What do you think, Luis?
Well, I think it's kind of like what you mentioned, right? So we, of course, look at what the competition is doing and how the market is evolving. And we actually had the chance and the opportunity to meet a lot of competitors here and see what they're doing. But we are focusing on creating the best product that we can. And we are actually happy that there are other players in the industry basically working towards the goal that we have, which is basically mass Bitcoin adoption and accelerating that as much as possible.
Okay, but I think that with also the Plan B network, Plan B Education, Plan B Foundation, we demonstrated that is an initiative in collaboration with the city of Lugano. So the entire initiative of Plan B started as really being a template. For being a template means that you are already agreeing in the first place for the template to be used eventually in other parts of the world. And the city, the administration of the city itself, I remember they went to Ibiza to showcase what they are doing, to showcase Luga, the city stablecoin, and so on. So there is extreme openness in the good spirit of Bitcoin in showing how things are done here and the things that could be used in other parts of the world.
Okay, interesting. And Dejan, I'd just like to get your perspective. I mean, do you see, say, the likes of Chivo as a competitor or Strike as a competitor? You know, how do you observe this sort of merchant payment space advancing and evolving?
I think we're at the beginning of this whole adoption, you know, and competing against each other would just be so stupid, literally. Like, and when anyone asks me like, oh, you have the same product or we are doing exactly this, I'm like, awesome, can we invest? Or awesome, can we work together? It's not a joke because, like you see, we have so many enemies already on the market that if we start fighting against each other, it's like, are you kidding me? That's not Bitcoinish. That's something else, right? Chivo, it would be like in El Salvador, they made the first steps, and it works actually. Now, if you go to a store, you can pay with Chivo. They have the POS device, and it's normal that at the beginning, you know, some things doesn't work. All right, and then you have to improve it, and the goal is that you never give up, you know. When we came to El Salvador, we saw, all right, here are the gaps, we're gonna fill these gaps, all right? And I see also other players coming to El Salvador, example, because we need to make sure that El Salvador doesn't fail. Understand? If they don't showcase the usability of Bitcoin and the real usability of it, I'm worried that none other countries will accept it as a legal tender. And I talked about this with another guy from Terra and Bitfinex, and I was in dilemma now. Should we go to El Salvador or not? Like, we also can go to Argentina. But the statement was, Dan, you need to go over there because we need to showcase that it can perfectly work, that we can bank the unbanked, all right? That we can showcase that it can be smooth and simple. And I think we did the right decision, and I invite all the companies who are looking into what we're doing. We're willing to give you our tech, like use it, spread it around your countries, you know, build the Bitcoin cities. We're open to this. Like, if you want to do things, like, we're not closing our doors, right? We're opening them, and I talked about this. We need to decentralize every process we can, because only through this we can achieve the fast adoption and spread.
Big time. I want to push back though. It's my job. You know, merchant payment adoption, it's one lever you can pull, right, on this path to banking the unbanked. Surely there are more important tools at your disposal to contribute to that meaningful change towards, you know, a Bitcoinization, a Bitcoin economy. What do you think personally are the most important tools in your toolkit to help people adopt Bitcoin? There's a really general question, but.
So, and probably you guys have heard this for the 5th time today. I think that the mistake that many people in the Bitcoin and in general in the crypto world are doing is designing products for us rather than for the others. So we tend to build things that you know all this thing with Web3 and then GameFi, and these are cool things that only people in the sector understand, right? That we shouldn't think that people that have other jobs, they are teaching in the kindergarten or they are driving a taxi, they have the time to fully understand the tech or to be fully involved in spending hours per day in trying to follow all the developments, right? So the way we approach it at this problem at Tether is to build consumer apps that are replacing, that are competing with the consumer apps that we are using in our day-to-day life. And suddenly, if in one of those consumer apps that could have billions of users, you put a Bitcoin wallet, people you have 1 billion people that suddenly are on board on Bitcoin or on USDT. So that is our approach, right? So it's not, we shouldn't be obnoxious in the way we approach to user experience.
No, absolutely fantastic point. Yeah, Luis, would you like to chime in there as well?
Yeah, I think a big part of that, as Paolo mentioned, is that we need, what we are focusing on is to try to have a user experience that is similar to apps and products that the merchants are used to use day to day. And then when we have something similar, we try to build on top of that, you know. So.
No, just from a personal perspective, you know, when I see people going from using cash to using a custodial Lightning wallet, as I saw recently in Peru, people use that custodial Lightning wallet because the UX is good and the benefits are just so flagrantly obvious. You know, you go from having cash on you, which people can steal, which creates problems at the till because there's never enough change and it causes those frictions. You go to a mobile native solution, it's just so obvious. But I think the harder thing to do is when you're competing with incumbent solutions, incumbent dominant factors such as the banks who do have really bloody good UX, unless you're American, in which case your banking UX is awful and it takes 5 days to make a wire. Dejan, what about yourself personally? With regards to what are the most meaningful paths towards adoption?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What are the meaningful paths to adoption?
What is? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I don't know why.
The question.
Oh, sorry. I thought you'd already transmitted it. Sorry.
Use your British accent. That makes it difficult.
No. I don't know.
What are your meaningful paths to adoption? That was even the wrong question. Sorry.
All right.
Okay. This is clearly the last panel on the second day of a very long 2 days for me. I'm so sorry that I'm failing to keep it together.
It's not.
Dejan, it's my fault. Sorry. What, for you personally, are the more important paths to adoption, if there are any, or do you think that Naka is the route to get there?
First of all, it's not your fault. It's the echo of this one, but it doesn't matter. The thing is that when Luis said it's so difficult, like we need to put the sticker, then we need to give the POS, we need to educate all the staff that it's continuously changing. Somebody doesn't even like Bitcoin, and you need to convince them that this is how it works, and it's another device. It's a pain, and that's why we came up with Naka. We said, let's bring it on the existing level of how users like. People like to have these cards. I don't know why, or they like to have this Apple Pay and stuff. It's so convenient, like beep, beep, beep. It is like it is, right? And if we can bring it to this level, but then showcase them that they can control their money, that they can, send it peer-to-peer instantly, cheaper, faster. Well, I think these are the benefits that they would maybe want to use. So I think we're close, but still far. There's still a lot of work to be done, right? Somebody said that. But I think we're coming there, right?
Yeah, we are 5% away, but that 5% is taking 300 times the time for having achieved the other 95%.
I agree.
Gentlemen, we are out of time. It was a real pleasure and a privilege for me to talk with you all this afternoon. Thank you so much for your presentation, Dejan. Please a round of applause for Dejan, Paolo, and Luis. This has been our last panel of the Plan B Lugano Forum. Thank you so much to Paolo Ardoino, to Bit4Next Tether, and to Plan B for putting it all together.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Paolo. Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Dejan. You rocked it. Well done.